So let's talk about giving notes. One of the hardest things to get right, I think, as a director is actually how to communicate with the actors in your rehearsal room. And one of the things that I realized very early on was that if you have a room full of 12 actors, if you're lucky enough to have a cast that big, the on day one, you're going to find yourself speaking 12 different languages if you're wise. You've got to understand that each of the people you are going to begin the journey of the play with are going to have their own frame of reference, their own baggage that they bring, their own talents, their own skills, their own peculiarities, all of which you want to draw together into the rich tapestry that's eventually going to become your production. In order to achieve that, you're going to have to start by speaking individually to each of them in the way that they need talking to. As the process goes on, if it's gone well, you should be by halfway to three-quarters of the way through your rehearsal process. You should actually have everybody in the room speaking the same language. And that language is going to be an interesting hybrid of all of the languages that you've been talking at the beginning of the process. A wise director will realise that the goal is not to get everybody speaking the same way that you do or having purely your understanding of the play. You're going to develop a language which will be unique to this production, and that is because it's unique to this group of people. And it is good to think of it like creating a new language. Quite often you'll hear creatives, I hate the phrase creatives because everybody's creative, whether you're a producer or working in the box office, but it's come to become a shorthand recently. So you'll often hear people in the design and directing world talking about finding the language of the piece. And that can often sound like a pile of wank. And of course, sometimes it is. But a big meaning of that really is that you do have to find your own way into the play. It's why just like going to listen to a different conductor doing the same piece of music, production after production of the same play can be worth seeing if it is genuinely unique to that group of people. Every Hamlet that you see should be a unique creation that comes out of that group of actors, that group of director, designer, composer, and so on, and the moment in time as well. So that's why it's always worth seeing a good Hamlet. A Hamlet that is not worth seeing will be the one where people have tried to emulate somebody else's vision, somebody else's production, because they won't be talking their own language. And that process all comes out of giving notes. My note sessions are famously long, and but I hope always worthwhile. And I think that you have to be tremendously careful, as I say, in the way that you speak to different people. There are actors who I've worked with. I've been fortunate enough to work with some people for, well, more than 25 years. There are actors now who I've done 20 productions with over as many years, if not longer. And I can, with them, get to a position where I can say, don't do that. That's fucking shit. Don't be ridiculous. What the fuck are you playing at? But there are other actors who I would never contemplate doing that to. And I might find myself saying, darling, you know that thing you were doing there? That was really, really wonderful. I wonder whether we might try doing something slightly differently. Years ago, I was lucky enough to assist Frank Hawser, who was a fantastic director, set up Oxford Playhouse, discovered various quite well-known people like Judi Dench and Ian McKellen and Ian McShane. All three of them, in fact, in one play, one production, wonderful play called The Promise. And I said to Frank, can you give me some advice as a director? What's the one thing that I really need to know? And he said, Frank could never remember anybody's name, so he called everybody Pussycat. So he said, there are only 3 bits of direction you need, Pussycat. The first one is, Pussycat, you know that thing you're doing in Act 1? Well, do more of it. The next is, Pussycat, you know that thing you're doing in Act 1? Well, do less of it. And the third is, Pussycat, you know that thing you're doing in Act 1? Well, don't. And at the time, of course, I thought, that's very amusing, Frank, but not much use to me. The truth is, of course, he's absolutely right. Because good directing, ultimately, once you've got the room right, you've got the rehearsal room right, you've got the atmosphere right, everybody's on the same page, that is all you need to be doing. You're saying a little bit more of that, a little bit less of that, or that's the wrong direction to go in.